Today, we are going to talk about why you should never trade or day trade on Fridays. So, I took two trades today. The first one I got stopped out, or sorry, I got stopped out at break even, and then the second one I lost. So, one break even and one L today. The reason that you should never trade on Fridays, and this is not necessarily like 100% sure, but it is statistically proven that most traders blow their prop firm accounts on Fridays because they want to leave and finish the week with a green number on their monitor on their screen. And that's not necessarily what I was trying to do today. I think I just didn't take the best trade setup, but there have been countless Fridays in the past where I have tried to um, end the week on a good week and it just never works. So anyways, let's do a quick recap of the trades that I took today. Hopefully, you guys can we can just learn something from it. So going into the morning, this is Nasdaq here on the left side, and on here on the right side, I've got ES. I trade futures, so we got NQ and ES. So overnight, this is just on the 5 minute chart. We came down and we swept out all these lows. There's all these different session lows that we swept out. We swept previous day lows, and we also swept these Asian lows from a few days ago. So we did that on both NASDAQ and ES at the same time. So there's a lot of power and momentum to go up. So I was looking for longs. I really liked this London high up here. I wanted to target that. And this morning I made, well, there was actually a couple gaps here. I really was hoping what would happen before we took these London highs right here. This was our draw. Let me go ahead and mark that out real fast. Okay, so there's our buy side liquidity. That's what I want to target. I was hoping we would come back down into this first presented 5 minute gap right here and then go up. That to me is a perfect A plus setup right there. Literally nothing wrong with it, right? You've got the 5 minute first presented gap right here, and then you also have a couple other little things on top of that, like a little breaker block and all that stuff. So it was a really good looking trade idea. However, we never came down into that zone. So if I fast forward just a couple minutes here, we'll see that we barely missed it and then we shot up and took it out. And this candle specifically, it was on the 1 minute, was a ridiculously high candle. I think this was probably some news tweet from Trump, maybe. It was a 132 point candle. That's crazy. Sometimes Nasdaq doesn't even move that much in a couple of hours, and it did that in a minute. And so that was most likely some type of news tweet or some economic news that happened. I need to follow that more. But anyways, that happened, and so we took out the buy side, and I did a couple good things today, and I did a couple bad things. Um, One of the bad things that I did was I probably should have just gotten off the charts at that point because when you have, actually, let me draw it out for you. It actually makes a lot of sense because this happened just recently. Well, today, basically. So let me go ahead and kind of clear all of my drawings. I know I've got a lot. So this isn't the best example, but let's just use this for an example. When you have kind of like price going in one zone, it's kind of in a box D area. It's kind of just accumulating, it's just consolidating, it's not really doing much. When you get a liquidity sweep and we come down and take out a low, that's when it's great to take a long and target the other side. Whether you target this high right here, which is the one that I was trying to target, that was the London high, or it could have gone up here, swept this high right here, and then continued down to these lows over here or something like that, right? You get the idea. Basically, when it's in a box, you want it to sweep one high or a low, and then you target the opposite side. That's kind of like a Judas swing. It's kind of like just a basic liquidity sweep. So, anyways, I need to get better at just stepping away and being done with trading if both sides get swept and I couldn't find an entry. So that's where I took my first trade was I thought we still wanted to come back and after taking out these London highs, I thought we still wanted to tap back into this first presented gap from market open, which is now a 15 minute fair value gap. And on the 1 minute, what happened was we ended up going right past this fair value gap, this one right here, which this is where I wouldn't really consider this the best trade setup. Yes, we inversed it, but it wasn't anything crazy. I took a trade. I don't remember exactly where I entered. It was somewhere around here, but I had a really big stop, obviously. And I mean, it almost did take profit, but it didn't. And I lost. Well, I got stopped out of break even because about halfway through this trade, I moved to break even. So that happened. I was actually down like $5, so nothing crazy. But anyways, fast forward to a few minutes later, I'll go ahead and show you what price ended up doing. So we kind of sat in that area for just a little bit, didn't really do much. We went up just a little bit, and then about at that time, if we look back, we did sweep these London highs right here, which I marked out a few minutes ago. This right here. We swept that, but also it kept going up, and so I was trying to look and see what else we wanted to sweep. And there's this high right here. I believe this was just about a day ago, maybe give or take a little bit of time. And so we went up and we swept that high for sure. Um, Let me make sure I got the. Oh no, sorry, this one. There it is. Boom. Okay, so we swept that one, and that to me was like, okay, now we want to go down. And this is where I had the right idea, but not all of the perfect components to take a good trade. We swept that, and we swept this crazy wick high from something that happened today, whether it was like a tweet or whatever. And I started to look for shorts. And what I did was I didn't want to just immediately get into one. And so I waited for price to travel back up into this range, kind of like a little bit of a, I don't know, you could call that like a little bit of a bearish gap, especially on the 5 minute. But nothing crazy happened yet. I didn't like it. We didn't show any selling pressure. We did the exact same thing, right? We went down, but then we came back up into this range again. And on the 15 minute, we actually created a 15-minute gap. Let me go ahead and just draw this out a little bit better so you can understand what I was looking at. So this was the 15-minute gap that I really liked. Um, Let me go ahead and just put that there. Okay. And we hit the CE, which is the consequent encroachment. That is like right in the middle of the gap. I have this little dotted line that shows you right there. We hit CE. And during that time, let me go back just a tiny bit. How do I go back? So this is where I had the right idea, but it wasn't perfect execution. I tend to get a little antsy to trade when I see a big candle like this one right here. Halfway through this candle on the 30-second time frame, it closed about right here. I know that's not a straight line, that's better. And that's where it actually inversed like a tiny little 30-second gap, which was like in here somewhere. And I took the trade off of that, right? We came back into this 15 minute, and my target was obviously these lows first, but originally the first presented 15-minute gap that we made at market open. That was my target. And I know this is a big trade. I wasn't probably going to target all the way down there. I probably would have taken full profits at this low or maybe one of these other lows right here. But you get the idea. This was not the best trade, I don't think, because one, I over risked. I put two minis on this and I got stopped out and I met my intraday trailing drawdown on my account. So, I mean, I got locked out for the day, which is fine because I think I'd need to kind of get put into timeout for taking a too big of sized trade. So right here, a couple minutes later, I just fast forwarded it. You can see I did just get stopped out. So right idea, it would have been nicer if we showed a little bit more pressure to the downside like this and then waited for like a pullback. And that is when it's really confirming once it breaks past that low. That's really the confirmation that it's telling you it wants to go down. So I took a little bit of an early trade. Sometimes I do that, and I've noticed from the past that I emotionally get attached to a trade when I see a big wick or a candle like this, and I get FOMO. I get the fear of missing out, and I feel like I need to get in now. But that's where I need to learn from my mistakes, right? I had the right idea. We tapped back into this giant 15-minute gap right here, right into the middle of it, and it looked good, but I should have waited for a better looking candle or maybe even a couple candles down, right? We could have created a little fair value gap to the downside, and we could have used that to keep going down. So there's a lot of things I could have done better. But the point of this video is to help you guys understand that Fridays are very, very difficult to day trade mentally because you typically want to end the week on a positive note. I've done that many times and sometimes it works, but a lot of times you tend to force trades that aren't really there. This is a perfect example. This trade had the right idea, but it wasn't the best setup. I would not give this an A plus setup at all. I would probably give this like a C, honestly, because it never really showed any real down pressure or down, selling pressure. And after that, I believe we ended up going up. Yeah, we just kept going up, and after that, I just got off the charts. I was like, okay, I need to just be done. I'm glad I got locked out of my account because I kind of deserve, like I said, I deserve to be put in timeout for something, just a silly mistake like that. I over risked a little bit too much, and I'm not saying I over risked because it was Friday, but I just thought it was a good trade, and I just kind of convinced myself that it was, but it really wasn't. So just be aware of that. Be aware of Fridays because they can definitely get to you mentally. I know a lot of traders will risk like 50% of what they normally risk on Fridays, which honestly is not a bad idea because I just know from personal experience it's hard to be there mentally and psychologically in the charts and in the markets and know and be aware of like your capital, your trading business and all that stuff. So anyways, that is just the trade recap for today. Hopefully that made some sense. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Let me know and I'll respond to them. I'll let you guys know how I trade, just everything that I do. And again, this channel is just to go through my trades, kind of back test them, journal, talk about them out loud with you guys so that I can remember, my mistakes and hopefully we don't make them again. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this and I will see you in the next one.